Hello and welcome to Alden Carrow's Poetry Podcast. I'm Alden Carrow, poet, walker and author of Cumbrian verse, Lakes to Fells in Poetry. This is a podcast for people who suspect, as I do, that the world is moving too quickly and that something quietly extraordinary waits for anyone willing to slow down, listen closely and pay proper attention to it. In every episode, I share two poems. The first is a guest poem from the wider world of verse, something that has stayed with me, or troubled me, or refused to let me go. The second is one of my own, drawn from the moors, the coasts, the weather, and the strange beauty of ordinary days. And for your chance to win a signed copy of Cumbrian verse Lakes to Fells in Poetry, I invite you to suggest a future guest poem by emailing me at aldencarrow78@gmail.com. That's aldencarrow78@gmail.com. The next guest poem will come from one of you. My email address is in the episode description. Today, after some weeks away in Cornwall, we come home to Cumbria, but not to the lakes and the fells the postcards love. We come to West Cumbrian, to the Iron Country, to a town that was built to do one thing and has now watched that one thing taken away. This is an episode about what is left when the work is gone, when the reason the place existed has been gutted and shipped to the coast, and the people who remain are left to live in the quiet afterwards. We begin with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, returning to this podcast with a short, hard sonnet about the strangest kind of emptiness, the inability to work and to hope. And then we cross to the present day, to Cleator Moor, a hollowed-out mining town beneath the West Cumbrian sky, waiting. Two poems about the same exhaustion, one the emptiness of a single soul, the other the emptiness of a whole town. So pour something warm, settle in, the wind is up, the light is going, and there is poetry to be found. Before we come to my own poem, I want to put our theme plainly, because the whole episode rests on it. When the work is gone, what is left is not peace. It is waiting. We tend to imagine that the end of labour is rest, that when the long task is finished, what follows is ease, quiet, a kind of earned stillness. But there is another kind of stillness that is nothing like rest. It is the stillness of a person or a place that has lost its purpose and not yet found another, and it is one of the most desolate conditions there is. Today's guest poem understands that condition exactly. It is Work Without Hope by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, written in 1825, near the end of his life. Coleridge has been with us before on this podcast. Some episodes ago, we sat with him in a quiet cottage at midnight, listening to the frost form on the windows. That was Coleridge in his pomp, the young man dreaming over his sleeping child. This is a different Coleridge altogether. This is Coleridge old, ill, dependent on others, his great work largely behind him, watching the world go busily about its business while he stands outside it, unable to join in. It is one of the saddest small poems in the language, and one of the most honest. The poem turns on a single, devastating observation. Coleridge looks at nature in early spring and sees that everything is working. The bees are stirring, the birds are on the wing, the slow sap is climbing toward the bloom. All of nature has its task and is busy at it. He alone is idle, not resting, but unable, the one creature in the whole landscape with nothing to make and nowhere to go. and from that he draws the line that has outlived almost everything else he wrote. As I read it, and it is short, so I will read it whole, listen for the turn at the end, where the despair becomes a kind of cold, clear wisdom. Here is work without hope. All nature seems at work. Slugs leave their lair, the bees are stirring, birds are on the wing, and winter slumbering in the open air wears on his smiling face a dream of spring. And I the while, the sole and busy thing, nor honey make, nor pair, nor build, nor sing. Yet well I ken the banks where amaranths blow, have traced the font when streams of nectar flow. Bloom, O ye amaranths, bloom for whom ye may. For me, ye bloom not, glide rich streams away. With lips unbrightened, wreathless brow I stroll, and would you learn the spells that drowse my soul? Work without hope draws nectar in a sieve, and hope without an object cannot live. Work without hope draws nectar in a sieve, and hope without an object cannot live. There it is, the whole of it, in 2 lines. The first line is the picture of futile labour, pouring effort into something that cannot hold it, the nectar running straight through the sieve. But it's the second line that does the deepest damage. Hope without an object cannot live. Hope, Coleridge is saying, is not a free-floating feeling. It must be hope for something, towards something, attached to some object in the world. Take away the object, the task, the purpose, the thing the hope was reaching for, and the hope itself simply dies. You cannot hope in a vacuum. What makes the poem so unbearable and so true is that Coleridge is not describing laziness or self-pity. He is describing the specific paralysis of a person whose reason for working has been removed. The bees have their bloom to build toward. The birds have their nests. He has nothing, not because he will not work, but because the object of his work is gone, and without it, the work and the hope collapse together. And this is why I've brought him home to Cumbria, to the town I want to show you next. Because what Coleridge describes at the scale of a single ageing man is exactly what can happen to an entire community. A town too can have its object taken away. A town too can be left able-bodied and willing and entirely without purpose. The work gone, the reason gone, the hope with nowhere left to attach itself. Which brings me to my own poem. My poem this week is called Cleator Moor. If you have followed this podcast through the spring, you will know that I have just spent some weeks in the mining country of Cornwall, in Callington, where the orchards grow soft over the old workings, and in Camborne, where the brass band still plays in proud defiance of the closed shafts. I want to be honest with you. I come home to West Cumbria and to its iron country, and I can't find that defiance here. Cleator Moor is the same story, told without the consolation. This was an iron town. Beneath it runs hematite, the rich red iron ore that, in the 19th century, turned a tiny rural settlement into a boom town almost overnight, drawing in workers from across the country and from Ireland especially, until the place was so busy and so Catholic and so radical it was known for a time as Little Ireland. The ore was hauled up and gutted out and shipped to the coast, and the town lived on it. And then the ore ran out or stopped paying, and the mines were capped and the work left. What remains is a town that did its one job, had that job taken away, and is now, in the words of the poem, a hard shell waiting for the turf to close overhead. I didn't want to prettify that, and I found, walking there, that I couldn't. There was no brass band there to honour. There was only the silence, and the silence, as you will hear, is not peace. So here is the poem, Cleator Moor. The fell side creates an early dusk, a high shoulder turning the sun away. The town is a ribbon cut from the slope, terraces clamped to the road's long spine. Under the pavement, the dark is honeycombed. Hollowed limestone, the hematite veins gutted and shipped to the coast. The silence here is not peace, it is exhaustion. The soil remembers the weight of the iron and settles into the empty spaces left behind. No steam rises from these roofs. The market square is a wide, cold lens. 3 bronze figures weather on the plinth, oxidizing in the damp air. They do not look at the past. They stare at the tarmac, at the gaps in the housing lines where the demolition has let the field creep back in. The mines are capped. The railway path is beaten flat by walkers. The town is a hard shell, waiting for the turf to close overhead. This brings us to our discussion for today, and it may be the hardest thing I have asked of you in this whole podcast series. What does a poet do with a place that can't be saved, can't be celebrated, and will not recover? A place the world has simply finished with. Because there is a strong temptation, writing a poem like Cleator Moor, to flinch at the last moment, to reach for the redemptive ending, to find the wildflower growing in the rubble, the child laughing in the empty square, the green shoot that promises the town will rise again. We are trained to want that. We feel that a poem owes its readers some light at the end, some reason for hope. And so the easy lie in a poem about a dying place is the lie of false consolation, the tacked-on uplift that tells the reader everything will be all right, when the truth is that for some places it will not. Cleator Moor was not, in the end, allowed to begin again. To pretend otherwise, to send you away comforted, would be telling you something untrue about real people and a real place, for no better reason than to spare you discomfort. But if we can't console, what is left for the poet to do? Is there any point in writing about a place that the world has abandoned if we can't offer a happy ending? I think there is, and I think it is the oldest and most important thing poetry does. It is witness. When a place can't be saved and can no longer be celebrated, the poet can still do one thing for it: see it truly and say that it mattered. Bear witness to it. Record that people lived here and worked here, and that the work that exhausted them also gave them their meaning, their community, their name, and that all of this deserves to be remembered, even now, especially now, when there is no one left to profit from remembering it. The poem does not heal Cleator Moor. It can't. But it pays the town the one thing the world has stopped paying it: attention. That isn't nothing. It is, in fact, a great deal. Think of what it means to be seen, to have someone stand in your emptied square, among your weathering statues and your grass-grown gaps, and refuse to look away, refuse to hurry past, refuse to reduce you to a statistic of post-industrial decline. The poet who does that is performing an act of respect. Not pity. Pity looks down. Witness looks level. It says, I see what happened here. I see what was lost. and I will carry it in language so that it is not forgotten. The bronze figures in my poem stare at the tarmac because no one looks at them anymore. The poem is the looking. The poem is the one pair of eyes that still meets theirs. And notice, this is the crucial thing, that witness does not require false hope, but it's not despair either. Despair would say the town is worthless now, finished, beneath notice. Witness says the opposite, that even in its exhaustion, even waiting for the turf to close overhead, this place is worth the most careful attention a poet can give it. There is a kind of love in that refusal to look away. Not the love that fixes things, the poem fixes nothing, but the love that stays, that bears the hard truth company, that won't leave the town to die unwitnessed. That is what the form can offer when it can offer nothing else. So when people ask me why I would write a poem about a place as bleak as Cleator Moor, what the point is when there is no uplift in it, no redemption, no green shoot, this is my answer. The point is the witness. The point is to say, this happened, these were real people, this place had a purpose and the purpose was taken, and I won't let it slip under the turf unremarked. To write that honestly, without the false comfort and without the despair, is the whole task. It is the hardest writing there is, because it asks you to hold a hard truth steady and not to flinch, not into uplift, and not into hopelessness, but into the clear, level, unconsoling act of attention that is, in the end, the deepest respect one human being can pay to another's loss. And so we come to the end of another walk together. We have stood with Samuel Taylor Coleridge and felt the strange paralysis of work without hope, the man who can't work because the object of his hope is gone, idle in a busy spring. And we have come home to Cleator Moor, a West Cumbrian iron town, hollowed out and waiting, its silence not peace but exhaustion. Two poems about the same emptiness. One, the emptiness of a single soul, the other, the emptiness of a whole town, and the quiet, unconsoling truth that runs between them. That when the work is gone, what is left is not peace, it is waiting. And that the one thing a poet can still offer such a place is to witness it and to say that it mattered. So now I would love to hear from you. If there is a poem you would like featured in a future episode, a classic, something modern, or a personal favourite you have carried with you for years, please email me at aldencarrow78@gmail.com. That's aldencarrow78@gmail.com. Every suggestion is entered into the draw for a signed copy of Cumbria in Verse, Lakes to Fells in Poetry, which will be sent to you by hand. The book is also available to buy at Amazon. The next guest poem will come from one of you, and that is precisely how I want this podcast to work. Not as a monument behind glass, but as something living, passed hand to hand between people who still care to listen. So, thank you for listening, for slowing down with me, and for being willing to stand in a hard, emptied place and not look away, and to call that witness. Until next time, may you find poetry waiting for you in the everyday, and I shall speak to you again on Wednesday.